So on a day where the Giants and Cardinals both won big, the Mets bullpen coughed up a lead and they lost to the Philadelphia Phillies. Oh, but wait a minute. I don't give a damn because they clinched yesterday. Home field advantage in Wednesday's wildcard game. So it's time to celebrate and time for the most fun-filled, jam-packed episode of Mets Wrap 360 starting now.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Oh, that's right. It's this kind of a show. It's a Let's Go Mets 86 Do It kind of a show. And I don't know that I've been this excited since we've done the shows. Very excited to get to meet Jim Brewer in the first show. This is kind of the only time I've been excited since then. I'm just teasing. But Christian Bladt at Christian DMZ here. Next to me is Melissa Weinstein at Melissa Wine. On assignment, Andrea Fasano, but we hope to have her back next week. And we've got a couple of special guests here on the show, and we'll get to our first in 1 second. But if you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you like and comment and all that stuff. And if you're listening on iTunes, all the same, the rating and the comment all helps. Follow us on Twitter at ABTVMets. But now, welcome on the phone, Michael Barron, who is on Twitter at Michael G. Barron. Michael, thank you so much for joining us here on Mets Wrap 360. We really appreciate it today.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so let's always get started. You know, I always feel like I kind of make the joke that when you ask somebody how they became interested in the Mets and how they started following the Mets, it's almost sort of like, you know, when somebody's in prison, you ask, well, what are you doing time for? It's one of those things that doesn't always, we don't always choose. It kind of chooses us. So talk a little bit about your background with the Mets, Michael. Did we lose Michael?
Dad was a Met fan long before I was born, and he took me to my first game in the final month of the '85 season. From there, I was hooked, and I've been very fortunate to be a first-hand witness at many historical moments since, including times in '86 and '99, 2000. All throughout the 2006 season. I mean, I was there for pretty much everything that we talk about. So yeah, I mean, I've been hooked for over 30 years now, and it's been a roller coaster. It's been up and down, mostly downs, but the last 2.5 years has been a pretty amazing upswing. And, this year is certainly no exception.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because it absolutely is a roller coaster, but it's also, I mean, this season's a bit of a roller coaster. There was a point 6 weeks ago where the Mets were 2 games under 500. They were 60 and 62. And on this show, I did do a little on-air funeral for the season because I just didn't see it. I still rooted. I still watched every game, and I had hope because you got to believe, but it was a little harder to believe. So how surprising do you think these last 6 weeks are compared to, even last year where there was still a big surprise after the trading deadline? But just compare the difference between this season and last season, looking at the last 6 weeks of both.
Well, I mean, I like you, and I think, everybody just left them for dead because, like you said, they were 60 and 62. They were in San Francisco at the time. They'd just gotten blown out by the Giants, who were, 5.5 or 6.5 games ahead of them at that time. And, it just wasn't looking good, and they just kept losing players on top of it, and they've continued to lose players throughout this run. But, I think, they've been the best team in baseball since that time. They're 27 and 13, I believe, during that span, which is the best record of any team, including the Cubs. Everybody likes to talk about the Cubs, but the Mets are the hottest team in baseball right now. And I think a lot of, we like to get on Terry Collins a lot for his in-game managing, and I think a lot of that has been fair over the course of the season, but he deserves a ton, if not all, the credit for keeping the noise out of the clubhouse and keeping as much water out of the boat as he has. And he kept his team afloat, he kept them together, and kept them believing. And yeah, they had a soft schedule down the stretch, but everybody gets a soft part of the schedule. The Cardinals didn't exactly take advantage of their situation. The Giants barely took care of their situation. But the Mets, they beat who they were supposed to beat. They played they got even better, down the stretch of the season. And so here we are. It's an amazing story. I think it's a very inspirational baseball story because there aren't too many teams who are under 500 with six weeks to go who get into the postseason. The Mets, they've done it now, I think, 2 times in their history. They did it in 1973 when they were in last place on September 1st and roared ahead and won the division and got to Game 7 of the World Series. So, it's a great story, and I think Wednesday's going to be a lot of fun. It's not going to be an easy task because Bumgarner's been lights out against the Mets in his career, and at Citi Field he has a sub-1 ERA, and we all know what he's done in the postseason. But look, you want to win it, you got to beat the best, and he's the best. And they don't have they're facing Noah Syndergaard too, so I think the odds are even.
Yeah, and look, I think that was definitely something that worked out tremendously in the Mets' favor, that everything fell the way it did, where they were able to clinch yesterday and not have to go with Syndergaard today, even for any kind of short relief. And, it's easy to question a lot of the moves that Terry made, but to what you said, I think that there are a lot of managers who wouldn't have been able to help his team keep their head above water during a season with this kind of adversity. Look, everybody has injuries. There are teams that have had just as many injuries. But, if you look around the league, guys who are currently managing, guys who maybe don't have jobs anymore, an easy scapegoat would be, that Matt Williams wouldn't have been able to get his team through this kind of adversity, and he's an easy guy to pick on because he doesn't have a job anymore. And I think that, people are very critical of Terry, but I'm very impressed with the job that he did. You only feel like there were just a couple of those, post-game ranting and raving and just walking away without taking any questions, a couple of closed-door meetings, but they were all at times where you needed to do that. And before you knew it, the things had really just started to turn around. And, one of the more interesting things, this isn't like last year where it's like, well, they made a couple of small moves and then they got Cespedes. Of course, everything made sense at that point. The things that they did in the latter part of the season, signing Reyes for not much, for a half a song. They didn't even really sign him for a song. And, James Loney and, all the kids that they had to call up, Gesellman and Lugo. And I don't know. It's such a fascinating job. And I think a lot of years getting to the wild card game, I would be excited but a little bit disappointed. I'm just really impressed that they were able to do this. Of course, it'll be disappointing if they don't go past that. But the fact that they got here, I don't know, it's crazy. And with me is one of my co-hosts, Melissa. And Melissa, you have any thoughts for what Michael and I are talking about?
Yeah, I agree with you that most times in the past I would have been disappointed with a wild card spot. But I think, and everyone was talking about this, and obviously I don't know how much truth there is to this, that Terry was going to lose his job at the end of the season if the Mets didn't have a postseason berth. Now, I don't know if this means he keeps his job. Obviously, there's still a lot of things to be considered. But Terry really did pull this season from what was crashing and burning that you sent into space on July 31st.
I did indeed, yeah.
And brought us back and really gave us hope when there was none for many of us fans.
Yeah, no, yeah. Michael, I hope you're less of a nerd than I am, but I used footage from Star Trek II when they shot Mr. Spock into space after he had died. And I was like, there's the Mets season. So, and I was very happy to take it back a few weeks later. And, Mr. Spock lived to do many more sequels. So, fortunately, so did the Mets.
Like Mr. Spock, the Mets came back to life, right?
Exactly. And
But you hit it on the head with, a lot of the contributions, from guys like Rob Gesellman, Seth Lugo, and T.J. Rivera. And look, Eric Campbell had a couple big hits. Matt Reynolds had a few big hits. And, the Las Vegas 51s really stepped up and, did a phenomenal job. And, if anything comes out of Wednesday, win or lose, I think you've learned a lot about, guys like Gesellman, which, he wasn't even on the 40-man roster, 3 months ago. And here he is, scheduled to pitch Game 3 of the division series, should they get that far, whatever it's going to be. So, it's a phenomenal baseball story. And, they're really the true underdog in the postseason, even though they have the home game on Wednesday. Everybody's saying, well, they have no chance against Madison Bumgarner. Well, no one ever thought they had a chance to be in the game to begin with. So, I think anything goes once the records go back to 0-0 on Wednesday.
Yeah, and look, it's all going to depend. I mean, it was 2 starts ago that Bumgarner got lit up for 5 runs by the Padres. So I'm not saying that that's going to happen every time, but it's not impossible. And I think the key to that game is really how high can you get his pitch count up to in the first 5 innings, because the real weakness of that Giant team really was very apparent in the second half was their bullpen. I lost count. I know at one point they had like 25 blown saves, and that's not all tagged on one closer, but the typical definition of a save, they had like 25 blown saves. So my question to you, well, I'll sort of give my statement first, Michael. I felt like it almost didn't matter whether they were facing the Giants or the Cardinals. Obviously, Bumgarner's great, but it wasn't going to be a slouch for the Cardinals either. The best case scenario was for the Cardinals to win today and the Giants to lose, so that they had to play an extra game tomorrow, get everything thrown out of whack. But that's not the way it happened. So, as it was starting to kind of line up over the course of the weekend, Michael, did you feel like it made a difference? Like, oh, they should definitely prefer the Cardinals? Because for me, I don't have, fond memories of playing the Cardinals in the playoffs in recent memory. So I didn't need to see that. And yet I have reasonably fond memories playing the Giants in 2000. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think anything has. One thing has nothing to do with the other. I think you just have to look at the makeup of the teams, and despite the Cardinals' deep struggles, I just kind of had a bad feeling about them should they get in, because the Cardinals. I mean, I guess you could say the same thing about the Giants. Both teams always seem to find a way, and
yeah.
But having said that, regarding the Giants, I mean. My dad just said it's an even year for the Giants, so God only knows what's going to happen on Wednesday. But to your point about the bullpen, if they can score a couple of runs off Bumgarner and get into that bullpen, keep the game close, 3-2, one way or the other, the Mets have the clear-cut advantage, because the Mets bullpen, now that Salas is in the mix, and he's been tremendous since they picked him up, short of an outing or two. They have the perfect formula in the 7th, 8th, and 9th. They have a lockdown formula, and that's not just against the Giants. I think that goes for the Cubs too. They have some concerns late in the latter part of in the back end of their bullpen with Hector Rondon. So the Mets don't really have concerns. It's another big reason why they are where they are today, because they didn't blow that many games. They didn't blow hardly any games down the stretch or at all this year. When I would have to look at the stats. I have the game notes in my pocket, but I think they blew 2 or 3 games, and that's it.
Yeah.
When leading after 8. So I think the Mets have a major advantage if they can get Bumgarner out of the game. Now, obviously, the Giants have the same intentions against Noah Syndergaard. They don't want him settling into a groove, because the game's going to be over for them if he's on and they're not touching him, and he's keeping his pitch count down like he did the other night in Miami. So it's going to be a fun game. I can't really make a prediction.
Yeah.
I think that perhaps the Mets are better off playing San Francisco, only because they seem to light up bad bullpens, and the Giants definitely have a bad bullpen, and it's a big reason why they struggled in the second half. I mean, they were awful in the second half.
I could not believe the leads that you would see get away, and yeah. I mean, so final question before I let you go, because I know that you're driving back from Philly, which, by the way, I guess today in Philly was not as exciting as yesterday in Philly would have been, because they didn't win, but it didn't matter that they didn't win.
But you got to send Ryan Howard off in a very nice fashion, and I think that's a nice thing.
Well, there you go. So there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Phillies did a fantastic job with handling the Ryan Howard situation. The Met fans definitely tip their cap to him too. There wasn't a single Met fan who was poo-pooing him. I think my dad agrees that.
Yeah.
Everybody, all Met fans were standing up and applauding him, and look, he crushed the Mets for 12 years.
Yeah.
And I think at some point you just have to say, you know what, that was awesome, and it was, and he was an awesome player, and I think he's on the, certainly if this is it, he's still in the Hall of Fame discussion, because he was so dominant for so long and was a big part of, a resurrection for the franchise. And
yeah, I mean,
I think he does deserve to be in that discussion. I don't know if he'll get in, But I mean, I think he deserves to be there.
Yeah, no. I mean, he was a tremendous part of all those Phillies teams, including their World Series team. So as you kind of look at the game on Wednesday, we have sometimes seen Syndergaard that isn't as locked in. We saw a game where it turned out he had strep throat and he was sweating too much. But, you see a little bit of everything. Do you think that the Giants, my assessment is that the Giants aren't really a running team, and that's obviously the biggest problem that Syndergaard has. Not that they won't necessarily try, but we've seen a lot of teams run on him, and do you feel like that's an area that the Giants won't necessarily excel because of basically the age of their players?
I don't know that they can necessarily in a do-or-die game because, the Giants are a very scientific, very sabermetric organization, and there's one rule of sabermetrics, and that's, don't give yourself up on the bases. And especially in a do-or-die game, I just don't know that the Giants can afford to take a lot of risks on the bases because, like I said, you can't just give up outs on the bases.
Right.
And especially if he's on, certainly if he's on and they get any kind of base runner, they just can't run. So I don't think that's going to be too much of a factor on Wednesday. And like I said, if he's on, it may not even matter. It may just be a 1-0, 2-1 kind of game, and that may be all. So it's just going to be a matter of who makes the mistake and when it happens. And you just hope that the Giants are the ones that make the mistake, and it's not the Mets.
Yeah, and I do think the fact that the game's at Citi Field obviously helps for the Mets, and the amount of support they have. I mean, if it was at AT&T Park, I think Melissa and I would have to consider driving 5 hours north.
I was going to suggest that to you.
Yeah, but it's all right. We don't have to drive 5 hours north because we just watch it on TV. But I think that, look, there are a lot of things that are in place where they have the tools they need to succeed. But, look, how many Met teams have been great on paper? So it'll be interesting to see how that game plays out. And we look forward to following your coverage on Twitter at Michael G. Barron. And thank you so much for calling in and spending a little time with us here on the show, Michael.
It's my pleasure. Anytime. Thanks for having me.
All right, absolutely. Thank you. And that's Michael Barron, as I said, at Michael G. Barron. So thank him for his time. And now, Melissa, before we get to our other guest, you and I will have a few minutes here.
Okay.
It's a very celebratory atmosphere, I would say.
Yes.
We had the Let's Go Mets playing at the beginning of the show. I think that I just might see some champagne there right next to you. So we, as longtime listeners of the show know, and for those watching on YouTube, I'm holding it up for the camera right now, we do have the Cabarets here, but because Andrea's on assignment, I feel like it's just not right to open it and celebrate. So now it's officially reached a point where whatever our last show of Mets Wrap 360 is going to be, that's when we're going to open it. I don't know when that's going to be. I hope that we have several more shows after next week, but we just can't open it yet. It wouldn't be fair to Andrea, who has sort of been tantalized and teased with the idea of, are we going to get to the Cabarets? No, not today. But, Reyes did have a decent week where he'd be worth it. So
that
instead,
sounds like an Andrea Fasano problem.
that is an answer. Thank you, Zach. In the booth, Zach Wilson, at that Zach Wilson, who, by the way, we have a hat of Zach's that we'll make sure that he's wearing on Wednesday. And if you can turn it to the side for our YouTube viewers, Melissa,
Like
he has the Thor wings on the side, which it was so cute because when you saw the hat, you said, "What's with the wings?"
Oh my God! Now everyone's gonna know.
No, I know that you just don't know about Thor because you're too busy watching baseball and keeping score to know about Thor and his wings on his hat. That's all right. So now you're going to open the champagne and we're going to celebrate. So, Zach, we're going to celebrate a little bit, but we're not going to celebrate with wine. So it's a half celebration. But, it's a wild card game. So it didn't do anything. It was just so anticlimactic.
I'm sorry. That's how you do it, so you don't kill people.
But I like on TV when it sprays everywhere.
Sorry,
Although we have
do
a
you
lot
want
of
me to shake it and,
no, we have a lot of expensive equipment in here, and Andrea's not here. Sorry,
I'm
Melissa. Yikes, embarrassing. Melissa used my lucky shirt to open that, and I wore it on Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday and Saturday my 1969 World Series ticket shirt. And they won all the games that I wore it for, and I'm like, oh, that was a fun, superstitious thing, but I need to wear a clean shirt today. And then they didn't win. So guess what? I'm not going to wash it, and I'm going to wear it on Wednesday. So
Wait,
we'll see.
this is dirty?
Oh, yeah, I wear it all week.
Here you
but
go.
just during the games. Just during the game. All right, well, yeah, that's true. It does smell. All right, so anyway, let's, before we talk to our friend Jaron Kiviat, who's been on a few times from at @NYM_news, let's talk a little bit about the week, because there's a whole season to look at. But look, this week was very important. When the week started, we didn't know. We had no idea what we were going to get. And we knew that the week was going to start with a game in Miami,
Very
the Marlins'
emotional.
first game after Jose Fernandez passed away. And, you know, you're just like, you don't know what to get in that game. That's one of those games where, oh, if you're the opponent and you build an early lead, are you beating up on it didn't matter, because clearly there was no way the Marlins were going to lose that game. They were there to win, and because of the way it all played out, great, good for them. But yeah, no, D. Gordon hit that leadoff homer. I'm like, wait, D. Gordon steals bases. He doesn't hit home runs.
He doesn't this year at all.
No, that was his third. No, granted,
No, first of the year.
Oh, okay, but he was suspended, so yeah, you're right. But anyway, so look, the Mets lost that game 7-3. Cologne did not look good, which I'm glad he was able to start yesterday. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that they were just hacking away.
I did see people on Twitter and Instagram saying things like, Cologne gave that homer to D. Gordon, and that really upsets me.
I mean, he's not that kind of player, Cologne, I think.
And I'd also like to say to people who thought that or have read things that other people thought, that's doing a disservice to Jose Fernandez, D. Gordon, and the Marlins. Whether you can think that, and that's fine, and I disagree with you, but don't take away that moment of pure joy and celebration of Jose's life for those players.
No, they went and got that game.
Though
and,
they deserved
look, the Mets had plenty. I mean, it was 7-3. It wasn't 50. What was the game against the Phillies left? 17-0 or
17-0.
17-0. So it wasn't that. It was like the Mets could have come back in that game. So and they were in it the whole game. Great testament to their friend. I was just glad that they weren't in the next two games. But what I learned, by the way, Al Leiter, beloved Met, is actually a broadcaster for the Miami Marlins because that was the feed that they had on MLB Network. And, I was going to be leaving soon, so I just watched a little of it. And I was so glad to see Al because I love Al Leiter. He's one of my favorites. So then Tuesday, all right, the Mets were definitely back on track. Syndergaard was back on track. A 12-1 win. And poor Tommy Kohler, another loss to the Mets.
But he just welcomed a new baby girl, so I think everything's okay.
Well, I'm a big fan of babies, obviously, as people, fans of the show know, so good for him. You know what? Focus on raising your kid. Don't focus on trying to get the Mets out next season. But there were homers from Yoenis Cespedes and Jay Bruce, a name that you might hear a little later in the show. Jay Bruce, very excited to see that. And big hits from Curtis Granderson, Lucas Duda, who I'm glad got some playing time. A couple errors today, so, maybe pinch hit in the wild card game, Lucas. Conforto, there was so much good stuff in that game. And then Wednesday was a 5-2 win for Lugo. Save number 50 for Familia, which you were really hoping that was happening because it's very important to you because the statistics and the records and those things mean a lot to you.
But it was interesting. I knew that he was the 13th player to ever record 50 saves in a season, but it's actually the 16th time because 3 of those pitchers have done it twice.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Mariano Rivera, Jim Johnson, and Eric Gagne.
I can't believe Jim Johnson had a 50 save season, but it was for the
Twice.
Orioles, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was on a crazy run that ended very quickly. But
yeah, it was good while it lasted.
And Loney and Bruce both homered in that game. A big double by Jose Reyes, who is on this bottle of Caberets that we will open hopefully not for a month or so, but we'll see what happens. And then Friday, a win for Gesellman, a 5-1 win. And that was the game where I'm like, all right, I can catch my breath, because if they had lost a couple of games this weekend, then especially the way it turned out where both the Giants and Cardinals won all 3 of their games over the course of the weekend. So, the Mets winning on Friday, I'm like, all right, magic number's 1. They should just go out and win on Saturday and then everything's going to be okay. And it's one of those rare times as a Mets fan that that's exactly what happened. And you know what? A little tip of the cap to Ryan Howard for making it a little bit more interesting than it should have been, because that's what he's there to do, is to hit a 2-run home run to tie up the game. But, it didn't really matter in the end. And Darren Ruff hit a home run off Salas, and
gosh.
I texted my friend and I just said, rough, very rough. I knew you'd like it. That's why I said it to you, because I knew it would make you
Every time
laugh.
I see his name, I want to meow like a cat, because I just like it's funny to me.
Cats don't say rough, right?
No, I know. I just think it's funny. Like
But
dogs
anyway,
and cats.
look, I was glad that the game played out the way it did. Little annoyed with the whole Fox national broadcast switching back and forth between that game and the Cardinals-Pirates game.
was furious.
But most of the time I got to listen on the headphones because I was out and about, so it was fine.
I had the TV feed up, but I had
Yeah.
Howie and Wayne on the radio.
because not Josh. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, so look, it was great. It was a great week. Yeah, they lost today, but so what? That's
matter.
literally what I said in the open. It really didn't matter. The fact that they clinched home field on Saturday, it was just like whatever. Today was definitely a big whatever game, and we're gonna look ahead to Wednesday at Citi Field. It'll be on ESPN, probably right around 8 o'clock Eastern. Who knows when first pitch is? There's a lot of talking heads over there at ESPN who have to get their thoughts in. Some of whom I like, though. I like Tim Kirkjian, and then there's probably a lot of other ones that I don't like. But I know I like him. And if I could think, Buster Olney. I like Buster.
No,
Really?
disagree.
You don't like Buster Olney?
Cannot.
But he's a Baltimore guy, and he.
I don't remember what series it was and if it was this year or last year.
Yeah.
But I was on Twitter contributing and
Did you get in a
reading.
fight with Buster Olney? This is very
No, but I
exciting.
tweeted something that was not the kindest about Buster Olney, and he responded because he didn't see the original tweet, which was the mean part of it. He only
Yikes.
saw me agreeing with someone else, but I was
Oh, I love
agreeing
this.
with the negative part, and
Yeah.
he responded, and I ended up texting my friend separately, who's a diehard Mets fan from Baltimore as well, and I texted him, and I was just like, I don't think Buster Olney read the whole feed. Sorry.
But you know what? That's all right. Anyway, the game's on ESPN. Whatever network it was going to be on, it was going to be disappointing. I mean, if it was on TBS, we could have had Ron Darling.
But we can always have Howie on the radio.
Yeah, well, I know, and exactly. And I have to figure out that whole thing.
I'll
but
teach you.
Thank you. So, look, that's very exciting, and I feel good about that. And before we get to our guest momentarily, Jaron Kiviat from NYM News, I'm going to take a look at the week first. The player of the week was very easy for me. Jay Bruce, because I've been waiting for this guy to break out the whole well, I was going to say the whole season, but that's a lie, since they traded for him. And, there were little flashes, like a home run here, a little double, and then a lot of strikeouts. But he had a great week.
He did.
He had a week that mattered when the games mattered. So great. I was very excited for Jay Bruce. Now that's just for the week. Now,
Yeah.
who do you think was the player of the week, Melissa?
Jay Bruce.
Copycat. All right, fair enough. But
But it was my definitive answer that I was excited about, because when we get to player of the season, it's a little
why don't you
hazy.
take player of the season first? Because you
added
texted
2
me
names.
that you came down to 6.
Yeah, but I
and then-
added 2
All right.
after I got to
Just
the studio.
give the list of names, and then we can go into how you winnowed down the list for player of the season from Melissa
I
Weinstein.
had Addison Reed, Bartolo Colon, Jose Reyes, James Loney, Wilmer Flores, TJ Rivera, Curtis Granderson, and Terry Collins.
Okay, Terry Collins I almost picked him.
Okay, good. That makes me feel
yeah,
better.
But I decided that, you know what, it's the player of the week. And even though I once gave myself player of the week, I felt like it's not, he's a manager. Yes, he's in uniform. You know what? I love Wilmer. Go ahead and take him off the list because he got hurt. Stupid slide. There's a lot of problems with that game, sure.
Okay.
But I'll tell you mine, and we'll see if that helps. I was very close to picking Asdrubal Cabrera. I had to pick Jose Reyes.
I am so happy.
Not just because of the Cabernet wine, which, by the way, if they still made it, I would hope that
I'm sure
I would
they
get
still
some.
do.
I don't know. The reputation's a little tarnished now, so maybe they don't. But anyway, it was just the literal face and the tone of the team just changed so much from when he came on, and it's exactly what I said on the show that I hoped happened, and I didn't say I knew it was going to happen. I'm not a know-it-all, but I'm just saying I think this could happen, and if it doesn't, so what?
And he brought a great sense of energy and also a lot of leadership, because obviously him coming back to the Major League Mets was
Yeah.
right around the time that David Wright was done for the season, and he definitely contributed to that, the positive vibe in the clubhouse.
I just thought of a terrible comparison. This is like on 90210.
The original, I'm assuming.
Yeah, when Brandon left, and then the next episode, oh, look, Dylan's back. Great. Who cares that he left? So this is basically, the Mets is basically 90210 season 7 or 6. Anyway, so thank you for helping me realize that. All right, so have I helped you with your player of the season by picking Jose Reyes?
It makes me feel better that you picked it, and it makes me feel like I should choose somebody else. Because
You don't have to.
I think I want to go with Addison Reed.
Very important to have that kind of consistency. A couple of rough outings, but you know what? They're very few.
Yes.
Familia had a worse season than he did.
Absolutely.
And Familia had a tremendous season, by the way.
And for us to finish over 500, let alone, I don't even know where I wrote it down, but a lot of games over 500.
Yeah, did it end up being 9? I'm so bad with numbers.
Six.
Oh, that's not
87, 75.
That's not 9. That's 6. Oh yeah, because they lost today,
Yeah.
and they got.
But I feel like, the statistic of holds aside, he did keep us in games that I think otherwise we may not have won.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree
and
with
he's
that.
definitely been a welcomed addition to the team. And because you chose Jose, I think I can choose Addison.
Yeah, look, no, Addison Reed has been a huge help, and talking to Michael, he mentioned Salas, which has been a great addition. And basically, they're heading into the playoffs with a bullpen 7, 8, and 9. You feel good. Last year, Clippard had really started to kind of fall off by the wayside. And, it showed. And I think at one point Clippard was 8th inning and Reed was 7th, and then they flip-flopped.
I'll be honest, I don't remember Reed from last year.
Yeah, well, he was there.
No, I know, but it's
Right.
saying so much.
Well, because Clippard was so bad, and part of the reason that they, look, there's a lot of reasons that they lost to the Royals. The Royals won that series. I'm not saying that. But it was very difficult for the matchups because of the fact that they didn't have Clippard. They couldn't really trust him and go to him. And so in a moment, we're going to be joined by Jaron Kiviat of NYM News. So anytime that you want to call him, Zach, that'd be great. And we will talk to him. And we've talked to Jaron a few times. He was actually here in studio once. You met him.
Our first show, mine and Jaron's, was together.
Look at that. And now you guys are reunited. Hopefully not for the last time.
No.
Hopefully this is one of many reunions here on Mets
This was
Wrap.
delicious.
I haven't had any yet. Oh wait, I have.
You have your
I know.
own.
I forgot. We were gonna share, and then I'm like, I'll just have my own.
It's celebratory enough.
So do you say Moe and Shandon? Is
I
that
don't
how you
know.
pronounce it?
Do you remember the SNL skit with
Message for 8-1.
Oh. So we didn't get that right. Why don't you finish talking about the SNL sketch, and I'll see if I maybe have a.
Oh,
the
okay.
wrong
There's an
memory.
SNL sketch with Cecily and someone else, and I can't remember who, but they kept calling it Moe Shambin, and that to me was like the funniest thing ever.
Oh yeah,
and they're
the
trying
porn stars.
Yeah, I didn't want to
she
say
and
that. I
Vanessa
didn't know if I was
Bayer do.
allowed.
No, you could. I mean,
Vanessa
you can,
Bayer, that was it.
You can certainly say porn star on the show.
But I
yeah.
didn't because my mom's watching.
Hi, Mama Llama.
And Papa's watching, and Daddy, I hope you're feeling
Hey,
better.
is Grandma the Nats fan watching?
I don't know if Steven Shaneberg's biggest fan is watching.
You have to explain that now.
I visited my
Here you
grandma.
are talking about porn stars with all them listening.
Yeah, right, exactly. I know she should be ashamed.
My
Zach,
grandma,
I
who
agree.
is I've spoken about before, is a diehard Nats fan, or at least claims to be. And my uncle said, "Since you're such a big Nats fan, who is your favorite player?" And she said that pitcher, Steven Shaneberg. Obviously, she was talking about. Thanks, Zach. Obviously, she was talking about Steven Strasburg, but it just gives me more confidence that I picked the better team, going with the
So
Mets.
apparently we have the right number, Zach, but I'm letting him know that we're going to try him again. This is live broadcasting. Sometimes things don't go the way you want, but we had the right number, so I feel good about that.
Good.
So that's not on me.
You can
know?
type the numbers.
Yeah, well, I know because
I still blame you.
Well, see, that's just the thing. If he gave me a different number, I don't know how I was going to get that to Zach without it going over
And be
YouTube.
like, "Hey everyone,
Hey,
here's
everyone."
Jaron Kiviat's
Yeah.
phone number and all of his 43,000
Right,
followers."
exactly. The many, many followers. But anyway, so we will. Jaron, are you there?
Yes, what's up, guys?
Woohoo!
Hey, great to talk to you. Welcome back. And you know what? There are a lot of ups and downs throughout the season. And when we've had you on, sometimes it's been during the downs. I'm going to go ahead and go out on a limb, Jaron, and say that this is definitely an up. So go ahead and give us your thoughts on the way that the season as a whole played out, and maybe some of the comments and feedback you're seeing at NYM_news, but of course it's just NYM News, but that's how people find it, NYM_news on Instagram and on Twitter.
Yes, yeah. So I must say, like, I was especially harsh on Terry Collins, and I really got to give all the credit in the world to him. You know, the team, they obviously showed in their results and like the way they poured the champagne and how they acted around Terry that they played for Terry Collins. And at the beginning, you know, at the beginning of the first half, late first half, you know, beginning of the second half, it didn't look that way. You know what I mean? And a lot of Mets fans are catching on to that, and they were actually, you know, quite frankly, calling for his head. And, you know, I wasn't quite in that stage, but I was definitely, like, leaning towards it. And I wasn't a huge fan of him. But right now, I'm still not a huge fan of him. But I just got to give all the credit in the world to Terry Collins.
No, I mean, I think that's very important because I do
Yeah.
know from following you on Instagram that you've been very critical, and people who comment on your feed are also critical. But to be able to look and be like, you know what, he did a great job as a manager. There were so many obstacles to overcome. There were so many injuries, just things didn't fall the right way. I mean, if you think of the expectation going into the season was basically that you were going to have these 6 amazing starting pitchers and you were going to go ahead and move Cologne into the bullpen so that Wheeler could take his spot in the rotation. And ultimately, what you end up with is Noah Syndergaard and a 42-year-old who has looked great this year, by the way, except for when he's looked terrible. But for the most part, Cologne has looked great this year. And, the fact that that's all he's left with, I mean, look, there's so many people you can give credit to for the season. Ultimately, it starts with Terry. But for Seth Lugo and Robert Gesellman to, inexplicably be faced with the situations they were and to pitch as well as they did was really impressive. I think we learned an awful lot about Rafael Montero during this stretch where he was unable to, succeed and excel in any way. So it pretty much kind of, for me, closes the book on him. But now you see all these other options you have where, who knows what you can do with some of these other players, some of your other starting pitchers, if they're all healthy next year. If you go into spring training next year, you have all these great pitchers. There's so many options. But, here's the thing. We don't have to start talking about spring training just yet. Exactly. That's the beauty of it. So earlier we were talking to Michael Barron, Jaron, and as I wrote on Twitter, the Jaron and Barron show today. What do you did you have a preference about the wild card? Did you think that they matched up better with the Cardinals or with the Giants? Or did it not make a difference to you?
Well, it didn't really make a difference, but obviously if I could pick a team to play, it would definitely be, via the tiebreaker, obviously, But if I could just pick a team that we'd have to play, it would definitely be the Cardinals. Even though, Bumgarner has struggled in his last few starts, I think he has like a 5-something ERA in his last 12 starts.
Yeah, I mean, two starts ago, he looked terrible against the Padres.
But you never want to face Bumgarner if possible.
Let me interrupt you for a second.
Cardinals,
Go ahead. No, it's all right. It's a little bit of a delay. That's my fault. I should just let you talk. What I was going to say though is that this is a game where basically both starting pitchers could have a couple home runs in the game. So it'll be interesting. These guys are both so good. It's one of those games that I kind of wish my team wasn't one of the two teams because you love these pitching matchups when you get them. Like the Chris Carpenter, Roy Halladay of a few playoffs ago, which was amazing. When you're not as invested in it emotionally, you can enjoy it more. Like this one, I'm like, look, I know Syndergaard's great, but I've seen Bumgarner over the years, and I just don't understand it. This guy's like from somewhere else. But anyway, I interrupted.
But
go ahead.
Yeah, well, with that said, though, I'm sure like a lot of Mets fans were saying the same thing heading into the last year's NLDS, facing Greinke and Kershaw with DeGrom and Syndergaard, you know what I mean? So it's tough to say, and it's really hard to call, you know what I mean? So we'll have to see what happens.
No, we'll have to see what happens, and I don't know. I mean, we were talking about it earlier, and I like what we've seen out of Syndergaard the last couple times out, and ultimately it seems like you just feel like, and this is exactly what Michael Barron said, is it's going to be a matter of which one of them makes a mistake first. And it'll probably be decided by the bullpens. And you feel like the Mets have an edge, but it's a small edge because, literally anything can happen. And this is why baseball is so exciting because I don't know. You know, a lot of these big marquee matchups between teams in other sports, you feel like you can almost guess what's going to happen. It really, it's going to all depend on the game, on the day. How cold is it? You know, it's who gets a good night's sleep. You know, dumb things like that. You know, because we've seen with the Mets season who sleeps on a futon and has a pain in their neck.
Oh,
you know,
God.
so we get all that kind of stuff like that. So before we look ahead completely to the wild card game, Jaron, as you look back to the season. I saw your post at NYM News. I saw the post about both Terry and Jose, what Jose meant. I said that Jose was the player of the season. The team really, just the face of the team changed so much. The tenor of the team, the tone of the team, everything completely. It just, he picked it up. He put the team on his back, as they say. Who do you think? Who do you think were some of the biggest contributors during the course of the season?
I definitely have to give my props to, of course, Jose Reyes. Not only him, but, you know, as we all expected, UNSS for this.
Sure.
But I think the biggest surprise for all Mets fans has to be Asdrubal Cabrera. I mean, we knew this guy heading into the season was going to be a solid shortstop. But in the second half, he has been unreal, you know, just carrying us every game. It seems like in every win that we had in this great stretch of like 27-12, he had a huge contribution in like all of those games. Even in the tough losses, he still – you know, had like a big home run or an RBI or something like that. So I just have to give all the credit to Asdrubal Cabrera, and he really solidified himself as the shortstop for next year, of course, even, you know, because he's on that contract and maybe even years after that, too.
Yeah, I mean, who knows exactly what we're going to see in the future. And, you know, Reyes is going to be there. Who knows what you're going to get from David Wright. They'll make it all work out, I'm sure. But you can't worry about next year. And I agree on Asdrubal Cabrera. On this show, I was very critical of Asdrubal Cabrera at one point in the season.
When he was like 0 for bajillion.
He was like, yeah, he was like 0 for July or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And you know, when he came back from a little stint on the DL, he's been great since then. And the defense hadn't really suffered at any point, and the defense has been great. And that was definitely something missing at shortstop last year. Love Ruben Tejada, but you know, it wasn't always pretty. And I think you're right, though. I mean, he was definitely on my list. He was somebody I was considering. So, what are you afraid to make a prediction for the wild card game, Jaron? Or, I mean, look.
No, I'm not afraid.
Go ahead. Tell us what you think is going to happen.
Oh, I got the Mets winning this one 4-2, and here's why.
4-2. I love that you have a score. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I've thought about this for like many weeks now, and you know, here's the day. So I think that we're gonna win because of this. When you're facing an ace, you're not really gonna get many rallies off of a pitcher. Meaning, like, we're not gonna like get many hits in one inning. You know, scoring like on an RBI base hit. Usually, what happens in these games is that you hit one big home run, and that's the deciding factor. And the Mets are a team of all teams that hits a lot of home runs. And you know, we saw it in the NLDS last season, Game 1. Murphy hits the big home run, and David Wright also had a big RBI. But that, you know, once Murphy hit that home run, we knew we were going to win that game. And, you know, in all the games, there was at least like a huge home run. And
it's
also
true.
Game 5 in the NLDS, Murphy had another big home run, and that was also the deciding factor. So I really think that in these types of games, when it's ace versus ace, home runs are, you know, quite often the deciding factor.
Yeah, no, like I think, you know, if you're able to get a hold of one, and that's the whole point of like who makes a mistake, who leaves a fat pitch somewhere that they shouldn't. Syndergaard, Bumgarner, let's see what happens. But yeah, I was at games 1 and 5 last year. Melissa was with me at game 5, and you know, it's true. Those were great pitching matchups, but it really came down to just the timely hitting, which is something that the Mets are doing really well this year. The pitching was better last year, but you know, and they say good pitching beats good hitting. But what about great hitting?
Exactly.
So we'll see. You know, look, we'll see what happens. You know, I like that you have a 4-2 score. Now, would 4-2 have been the score if it was against the Cardinals, or did you have a different score in your head for that?
No, I don't have a score for that.
No, it's okay. I was
didn't
just
think of
wondering.
that,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm a little
I can make one right now.
No, it's all right. I was just curious. You know, and look, for the Mets' advantage, I think we talked about this earlier. I definitely was hoping that the Giants and Cardinals would have to play an extra game tomorrow. You know, a little extra travel for the Giants, who I felt like would have won that game. But that's all right. And by the way, Cardinals fans online are very mean and they're very angry. And they were blaming the Dodgers for, intentionally throwing that series because they're afraid of facing the Cardinals later in the playoffs.
What?
And I was like, that's Cardinal fans for you.
Let me say this. The Cardinals, even the fact that they came in today with a chance still, that is a gift.
It's true.
You did not deserve it. And one of my closest friends is a Cardinals fan, and we argue all the time, and we had a very heated discussion about what happened earlier this week. I am so thankful we are not facing the Cardinals.
That play that didn't get reviewed but should have against the Reds.
Because
Yeah, I agree.
guarantee you he and I will no longer be friends.
Yeah, that was crazy. And yeah, I mean, it's sort of glad that didn't become the one game and the one call that wasn't made that didn't basically change the whole picture.
I even wrote in my notes today. I wrote Kelly Johnson ground rule double. Actually,
an actual ground rule double instead of the phantom ground rule double. But anyway, I agree with all of that, and I think that look, none of these teams were great during the course of the season as a whole. As a Mets fan, we can feel better about the way that they're heading into the playoffs. Again, anything can happen in one game. And I've loved the new format of the wild card until this year.
No.
Well, I have until this year. Now I don't like it because it's like there's no margin for error. You have to win the one game. But watching it as a fan of the Mets and just watching other teams, there have been some great games. You disagree,
yes,
Melissa.
so I don't know. Jaron, I'm sure you remember. Christian, I'm sure you also remember. Not so much this season, but in the past, SNY has done Tweet of the Game, and you could tweet at SNY, and they would pick 2 or 3 tweets to show.
Okay.
And I believe it was 2 years ago. They said, do you like the concept of the one game playoff for wild card spot?
Right.
And among the tweets that were chosen was one of mine that
Very
said,
nice.
no, if you make it to the playoffs, you deserve what I called a real series where you actually get to compete. Because what I find, I watch a lot of football as well, and football playoffs are one and done. And baseball playoffs, with the exception of this new wild card format, is full series where either it's a best of 5 or a best of 7. And I liked, to me, that was obviously not, like, there wasn't more at stake,
Sure.
but it was more entertaining to me because that one game didn't always matter.
Well, I understand that point, and yeah, it is sort of like having the 163 tiebreaker sort of game, which I've also enjoyed. We've had a few of those in the last 10 years. But I understand your point, and it's going to be very nerve-wracking on Wednesday.
I'm not happy.
I got to pick my son up early at daycare, and then I can't talk to anybody. Well, it's just because I can't go get him during the game. I got to sit down and watch the game. I don't want to talk to anybody.
You're a good father.
Yeah, well, I can't leave him till after the game's over. What if it goes extra innings?
That's a good point. Sorry, Felix.
Yeah, exactly. Felix needs to, but look, I feel good, and, I don't want to go into specifics. I feel like if they are fortunate enough to make it to the NLDS, look, everybody said they didn't have a chance against the Cubs last year, and I think last year's Cubs team was better than this one. And so it'll just, as with anything, if you can steal a game at Wrigley Field in the NLDS, if the Mets are lucky enough to get there. I know I hate talking about things that are too far down the road,
away.
But if they are, then literally anything can happen, which is what I thought in the NLCS last year. It's like, just steal game steal one of the first couple games. So we'll see. I know for a fact we're going to do a show next Sunday, and I hope that we're not talking about just one game, that we're talking about 3 games. And Jaron, hope you're able to join us either on the phone or in studio.
Yeah.
But we appreciate you taking the time and joining us here on the show. And it's NYM News, and there's an underscore, NYM_news, and that's on both Twitter and Instagram. Any final reflections as you look back on the season before we let you go, Jaron?
Man, all I got to say, it always works this way for each and every sport. Like the hottest team for that sport always seems to go far in the playoffs, and I must add that the Mets do appear to be the hottest team in all of baseball right now. So I don't want to be making any bold predictions until after we get past the wild card. But all I'm saying is that it could be a magical run again, as we are hot and all the momentum's on our side right now. So you got to believe.
Yeah, you definitely got to believe. And, I think that there were definitely a couple of bumps in the last couple weeks. But, when it really came down to it, you saw the way that the team came together, and it was great. Well, thank you so much, Jaron. We will talk to you next week one way or the other. But hopefully we have a lot more baseball to talk about down the road. But I don't even like alluding to future series, and it was really hard last year when I had to talk to my friend about buying tickets to the World Series because
You hadn't even clinched the playoffs.
because I think that they were in the playoffs,
Oh,
but
okay.
that was it. They had clinched, and then World Series tickets went on sale, and I'm like, so Halloween, and
How much are you willing to pay?
it turned out to be a lot. But anyway,
Worth it.
yeah, so who knows? But look, excited to have a wild card game to watch. Like we were saying earlier, 6 weeks ago, when they were 2 games under 500, I didn't even think that the wild card was remotely possible. The way that the team had played at that point, what their record was, I just didn't feel it. So, Melissa, an overall thought on the season for you before we go. And
Some ups and downs for sure. There were some times when I was disappointed, but the entire time I was proud to be a Mets fan, as I always am. I think it's a great organization to be a fan of. Of course, now getting to the playoffs for the second year in a row was pretty exciting, and I'm thrilled about it. I'm not thrilled that it's as a one-and-done wild card game, but I'm as always so excited to be a Mets fan and, be loud and obnoxious to everyone I meet that I am, in fact, a Mets fan,
Right.
and they should be too.
Look, I look forward to being loud and obnoxious, and we have so much to be excited about in the next few days. The fact that Wednesday is so far away, it's 2 days of me watching Chris Russo on the MLB Network. He's going to be yelling about why the Mets are going to lose because he's a Giants fan. There's going to be so many voices in my head, as opposed to the usual voices that are just in my head. But look, I'm looking forward to it. And as we go, there was sort of a great sentiment at the end of the Dodgers-Giants game today from Vin Scully, who was hanging it up after 67 years. If you haven't seen it, go ahead and track it down on YouTube. One of the many things he talked about is how tomorrow's another day, and I feel like it's gonna be a great day. Tomorrow in the general sense being Wednesday, but tomorrow I think is gonna be a great day for the Mets, and it'll be great for baseball, and I'm really looking forward to it. But we will be back here Sunday at 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern, regardless of what happens. Yeah, there we go. That's how we ride off into the sunset. Little Meet the Mets. We'll be back on Sunday no matter what happens. I have every hope. I have all the you gotta believe inside of me that we will be talking about 3 games next week and some more games in the future. But for the invisible absent Andrea Fasano, who we hope to see back next week, at Andy Fasano, Melissa Weinstein at Melissa Wine, I am Christian Bladt at Christian DMZ. And huge thanks to Matt Ritter, by the way, for helping us get Mets Wrap 360 started earlier in the season. A true Mets fan, just the schedule got away from him. So we love you, Matt. Thanks for being a part of this early on. And we will see you all next Sunday on Mets Wrap 360.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later!
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.